So Justin McCullough, Turning Minds, thank you for coming here. You guys had a choice today on where you would be, and you decided to come here, and I thank you for that. As you mentioned in the introduction, I've been around for a while here in this community, and so I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of clients that you guys would recognize, and many small business owners who probably aren't nearly as recognizable because they don't have the budgets or the marketing horsepower that some of our larger organizations do in this market. I've been blessed with a lot of opportunities to see probably, I'm just going to say probably every marketing challenge that is typical and a handful of them that aren't. Back in the I don't know, maybe it was early 2000s, the Wildcatters was a hockey team here. Raise your hand if you remember that group. They wound up almost being kind of the kiss of death for me. They were one of my largest clients at the time, and the lady that ran the operations there, her name was Jenna, and a good way to describe her would be unsatisfied bulldog. And so it was pretty much whatever we poured in, just kind of never measured up. And I don't think that's a testament to the quality of our work. I think that's an example of where we can be as business owners when we have our operations. We have a certain spirit of excellence that usually we don't do a very good job to describe, and usually we don't do a very good job to clearly identify and articulate. But nevertheless, we know it when we see it, right? Well, when we're in marketing and advertising and on the service side, if any of you guys are in television groups or advertising groups, it's really hard to get that out of the small business owner. Well, you know, what are your intentions? What are your expectations? How will we know we've delivered something successful? And I say all that because what I'm going to do today is I'm going to try to be on your side of the table. I'm going to try to walk along with you and speak from the standpoint of when my experience has shown and delivered with consulting and strategic affairs and things like that, and give you that information as if you and I are kind of in a partnership. And you've gone ahead and said, you know what, I just trust you to tell me what the right ways are because I'm not trying to sell you anything. Instead, what I want to do is I want to encourage you to see where we're at today. Before we do that, just to get an idea about you guys, I thought I'd ask a couple of questions. Who here is on Facebook? Show of hands. So that looks like 90%. And I can't believe some of you guys are not going to participate already. Okay, so I'm going to guess that's probably more like 98%. But who here's on Twitter? Show of hands. So that looks like about 40%. YouTube? All right, so about 10%. LinkedIn? About 50%. All right. Who's blogging?
I have one, but I don't use it all the time.
Okay, all right. That happens often. We'll call that about 10%. Who here is putting out some sort of an e-newsletter? Okay, that's about 10%. You guys are all probably familiar with the BBB newsletter, right?
Thank you for the plug.
Yes, all right. Yes, absolutely. So, and that's a great example of consistency. Who here has a smartphone? Should be just about everybody right there, right? Should be about 90%. So, these numbers don't surprise me at all, and I would say that this is certainly accurate for our area. This is a good indication of where we're at. Now, let me ask you this: who here has figured out how to use Facebook for business and knows it's working for their business? Yeah, about like a 40% number there. So put those right there. And same for Twitter. Anybody figuring out how to make Twitter work for their business? No? It's about 5%. YouTube for business? Okay. Yeah. So LinkedIn business. We've got 1, 2, about 10% again. Okay. Newsletters working for your business? Okay. About 10%. And obviously you guys are making the smartphones work, right? You're taking the phone calls, you're checking your voicemails, you're doing your texting and all that. The reason I want to do this is because I want to show you the gap between having something that you know about versus having something you know how to actually make work for you, right? One of the things that I've found to be most commonly true is we think we know what marketing and advertising is about because we've got experience to it, we've got exposure to it. We think we know what online and social media are about because we have a website and we have a Facebook account. But most often, we come to a session like this and we're looking for the how, right? How can I make my Facebook better? How can I make my online identity better? How can I make my website better? And I want to charge you first that what we need to really be thinking about is why. Why has it gotten to where these tools are so important, where we want to make them work for us? To get there, we have to just come to an agreement about what we care about. As a business owner, we care about us. We care about ourselves, we care about our customers, we care about our profitability, we care about what's going on in our marketplace, we care about if we're competitive, right? Those are all the things that we're driven by. Those are what's motivating us. And I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. I just want to put it up there to say that's where we come from. But I want to encourage you, and this is a business truth that's been around for a long time. It's not just because it's a social media thing. The only things that really matter are customers, what our product and service is, whatever that may be, and then the experience that happens between the two, the relationship. A lot of times in our corporate brochures, that's the handshake picture, right? That's the marriage between the customer and the business. And so I want to just bring it down to this very simple point that you guys are in here today because you have customers and you have products and services and you want to create a relationship between the two, an experience between the two, okay? Now, web and social, those are tools that are going to help you do that. But if you don't keep this in perspective, then you wind up thinking about the how-to stuff, the hacks, right? Just give me the shortcut answer, how can I draw my sales? Just give me the shortcut answer, how can I get more followers? Let's just jump to the chase, how do I write a better blog, right? Those are the kind of questions we ask when we're in our egocentric state, where we're only thinking about what we want. But the truth of it is, if we want to leverage social media, we want to leverage the web, we have to think about what the customer wants, right? Because the customer is the one who's going to participate in this new space that we're in. And I'm going to articulate why that is. The customer, and as I go through here, I don't have a handout for you, so if you want to capture these points, I'm going to try to stay on the slides long enough for you. As we go through this process, if you've been in sales training or any kind of marketing and advertising disciplines, you know it always comes down to the benefits, right? It's not about the features, it's always about the benefits. And that's an easy conversation to have when we're talking about our business, but even when we're having that conversation, we're still not talking about the customer. We think we are, but what we're really doing is we're talking about ourselves. We're finding a new way to talk about ourselves. So we say things like, well, it really is one of the best in the market. And then when we say, well, which market? This local market, or the national market, or the international market? Well, it doesn't matter, we're just one of the best in the market. Well, that's an important question, right? Because your customer is going to ask that question. Because what they care about is they're all about trying to find ways to avoid pain, avoid problems. They don't want to spend money on things they don't have to. They want to increase their lifestyle. They want to be happy. They want to have family time. They want to have all the same things that you want to have when you're in customer mode, or what I like to say, normal people mode, right? Because when we're in business mode, we distort the world because we've been trained to distort the world. All of our seminars, all of our conferences, everything we do in professional development, all the books we've read tell us how to distort our view and hack the system to get more customers. I mean, that's just where we come from. And that's a natural concern. But I can tell you that whenever businesses were successful, and a lot of the stories that we referenced with the Ford Motor Company and things like that, they all came from a place where the business owners weren't in business to create revenue. They were in business to create value. Okay? So when we think about business and value creation, it's not being business for P&L statements, right? So the byproduct of a great value is profitability. Make sense? And the only way we can have a profitable byproduct is if we're able to have value creation, and that comes from understanding what these customers care about. So as we move forward, and I'm trying to shape this perspective for you, as we move forward, we want to think about our customer. What's in it for them? What do they care about? What's their pains? What are their motivations? What are they interested in, right? And 15, 20 years ago, we didn't care as much about this, but we did. I mean, there were many ad agencies in the 60s to about the late 80s that really broke ground because they started speaking in the customer's language, right? And so we have seen what it is like to create successful advertising that speaks to the customer in the language they use, as opposed to what we call corporate speak, right? Or the jargon or whatever, right? So even in the case of me presenting today, I'm trying not to say Twitter, Facebook, blogs and all that stuff more than I have to, because that's a true definition. But a lot of you guys will get lost if that's the only thing I talk about. Because the end of the day, my view of all this stuff is probably very different than you guys when I think about lead generation, fans and followers. And I can go off into a whole other place that you guys are going to be like, now how does that work again for my business? And it's not because you guys don't get it. You guys are all sharp, and I totally know that. But what we don't get is the customer's motivation for these platforms. So that's what we're going to try to get into. So when you're thinking about whatever you brought into this equation today, I want to get sales through online. I want to get customers through online. I want to get leads through online. Whenever you brought that into this meeting today, some of you were praying for a miracle, right? I hope this guy has all my answers. And others were going, I've heard this might work for me, but I'm not really too sure about it, and I want to get some education on it. Well, there's a big gap between I want to put my toe in the water to I have to get results. I don't have any other choice, right? So that's a big divide. So the only way I can get us there quickly to where when you leave here, it doesn't matter if you were praying for a miracle or not, you're going to actually know how to fire up your Facebook account or your YouTube account because you're going to understand why. Not so much of the how, because the how is surprisingly easy, right? But why, right? And so if you write down some of these points here, this is why we use web and social media, right? Because what we want to do is we want to attract people to us. We want to attract them by speaking their language, not speaking ours. We want to attract them by talking in a way that they understand and agree with. We want to facilitate conversations, right? We want to create an opportunity for them to have a role in the conversation, right? We want to appeal to their interests because again, if we're always about our interests, then nobody buys into that, right? I mean, and that's the same thing whenever you guys are in your customer mode. If somebody is too aggressive about their interest, you're at Best Buy and the guy says, did you want to buy that? Did you want to buy that? Did you want to buy that? And you're like, hey buddy, I'm sure I'll buy something, but let's start with what I care about first. I'm looking for a DVD player that can, unlike what you might be used to, I want one that my son can't push the buttons on, right? And so I know that's an unusual request, but that's what I care about. I care about one that doesn't have buttons on the front, and well, that's not normal. Well, that's my situation, right? So that's what I mean by that. So as we start to think about this, we realize that this is not new at all. We have a new platform, social media and the web, right? But it's not new at all. It's been the same thing we've been talking about for a long, long time. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. That hasn't changed, right? It's been around for a long time. If you've ever got into the advertising discipline, one of the common phrases was AIDA, right? That hasn't changed. We still want to create awareness. We still want to have interest. We still want to have a desire, and we want to have some way for them to act on it. So that hasn't changed either, right? And of course, we all know the golden rule. This is all the same stuff. Now, what happened though, years ago, in the early 90s, or prior to the early 90s is a better way to say this, there was a domination of traditional media. And we know this, right? We know that the newspaper circulation is dropping. We know that the television groups are splintering with their interest, and their formats and programs are changing, right? That's not a critique, that's just what's happening, right? So there was a time whenever there was one primary newspaper and there were a couple of small town newspapers at best. There was a time whenever there probably was no local magazine format unless you were in a metro area. And now in this area, we've got a lot of magazine formats. We've got the Pony Times, we've got all kinds of different stuff, right? There was a time whenever the only way you could get a book published is if you had a book deal, right? And so that's really what I'm talking about is we went from this idea of a handful of options that controlled the marketplace and the way we spoke to our customers, to now all that power and control has been handed over because our customers can now use the technology. And within this shift, more and more people, more and more entrepreneurs and others have gotten involved, and they realize, well, gosh, I don't need the newspaper to get this word out, right? I don't need the radio station to get the event information out, right? I don't need my really expensive ad agency anymore to produce my flyer or my event direct mail piece or whatever. So as we shift this direction, what we have is more and more customers who are kind of getting the control back. So it's not that our customers all of a sudden are going to do our jobs as advertisers, or they're going to do our jobs as marketers or salespeople. Instead, it's that our customers are now able to participate at the level they've always wanted to. That's the change. Because 50 years ago, they wanted to be involved, but they couldn't, right? It's not that they were different people 50 years ago. It's that 50 years ago, whenever the sales rep went through his product presentation, and when he was done, he made the offer, and you either accepted it or you didn't, right? You couldn't go and complain about it. Maybe you would go to the church and complain to somebody at church. Maybe you would go to the local business administration and talk to them about it. But otherwise, you can have a platform to have any grievances and put them out, right? Well, now we know that Facebook and Twitter and all these places are the platform. And it's not just about criticisms and critiques and grievances. What it is it's total empowerment. So as you guys are looking at making the shift, we need to understand that our role as a small business owner is to embrace that empowerment. Because the people who are being successful right now have done just that. They've decided, I'm not going to just advertise to you, which is the one-way communication. Instead, I'm going to market to you, which is a little bit more of a discipline. I know who you are, I know the things you care about, I'm going to have a message that works for you, and I'm going to segment how I say that, right? I mean, the act of marketing is closer to the customer, it has a stronger call to action. Advertising tends to be the upfront awareness, just know about me, okay? Well, the good news is with social media, we can create all those same end games, we can have all those same objectives in what we do, but we don't have to have the same tactics. The tactics are different. So when we are looking at these normal people, right, our customers, we need to go back to the basics and understand that they want to be informed, they want to be educated, they have a problem that they need to solve, right? And then they have all the other normal elements, right? Emotional appeal, storylines, characters, right? People are just as complex today as they've ever been, but now more and more people are catering to that complexity. And so we see, lolcats circulating for humor, and yet they're driving huge revenue through their organization because people are buying products and stuff as they come to know through an entertainment vehicle about this lolcats phenomenon, right? Or that goes on to one of my favorite examples is Blendtec. Blendtec has these $800 blenders, and several years ago, on a shoestring budget, their sales were in a slump. I mean, how many people need to buy an $800 blender, And so their sales were in a slump, and so they didn't even have a marketing person on staff. They really saw themselves as a cutting edge. We're great at what we do. We have the best equipment. We have the best technology. We got a strong brand. We have a strong profit margin. All these things that we think about as business owners, but our sales are in a slump. So one of the people there that had some marketing savvy, again, not even a marketing director or anything like that, he just said, well, I'll make some videos. And I'll put them on the internet. And of course, the CEO was like all of us. He said, like that's going to work, right? So for less than $100, he goes out. The CEO spots him $100. He goes out, he comes back with a cheeseburger, he comes back with a white lab coat, comes back with the clear goggles, the safety goggles, and a handful of other props. And he says, I'm set. This is what we're going to do. He's like, the CEO says, what do you mean this is what we're going to do? He says, you're going to put this lab coat on and these glasses on, and we're going to blend this baseball. We're going to blend this cheeseburger, and we're going to blend this brick or whatever else the other props were. And he says, you're crazy. It's never going to work. But in the legendary ways of the internet, they did that. And the guy was clever about it. He didn't talk about specs. He didn't talk about the blade technology. He didn't talk about the horsepower and how big the motor was and the quart size of the, right? He didn't go into any of that. Instead, he literally just kind of went, and I wish you could pull up here for the internet, but he literally just went, cheeseburger. Will it blend? Bzzz. Yep, it blends, right? And then he put a baseball in there. Will it blend? And then that's when you start to go, wow. And then he put a brick in there or whatever it was, right? And he's like destroying this stuff. And one of the segments they have, the guy puts it in the iPhone. He puts an entire iPhone and says, what do you think? Do apples blend? That's amazing stuff, right? But it's normal. It's just having a little bit of humor, a little bit of personality, and then using the technology, leveraging the technology. Well, this guy took off. Their sales took off. Millions of views, okay? So look it up. Will it blend? Blendtec? It's good stuff. My point in saying all that is we've been trained to think marketing is a certain thing. It is a value proposition. It is a clear definition of our unique selling point. It is features and benefits. It's a call to action, right? And those are all technically sound things. But with social media and the web, we want to kind of put that stuff to the side. It's not that we're going to forget about it and not use it. It's that we're going to actually kind of get around the table and say, yeah, all that stuff is still there, but let's get to know each other. Let's have some more appeals besides products and benefits. Because now, when I have, who here has more than 5 people on staff? Let's say half the room has more than 5 people on staff. What happens whenever you roll out a new product, or you have a product that's been around for a while? Either one of those scenarios work. And somebody's upset, and they go to your staffer's Facebook page and start talking to your staff on their Facebook page. I'm saying, hey, well, it doesn't work that way. No, it does work that way, right? Because those staffers, the people who are on your payroll, they have a relationship. They have 200, 500, 1,000 friends on Facebook, and most of those people know where they work, right? So if I can't get in through the phone tree and I've got 20,000 options and I don't know who to talk to, am I going to do that, or am I going to go to Sally and say, hey, Sally, you work over there at XYZ Corp, don't you? Yeah, I do. Who do I need to talk to? I'm upset about this. Or who do I need to talk to about a special order? Or, I'm so upset about this, or, this looks really interesting to me. Who can tell me more? Is that person going to say, well, I'm not in customer service? Or I'm not in sales? No, they're going to say, hey, look, Jim, let me give you the CEO's phone number or whatever. Because this is a friend relationship. This isn't just some stranger who calls them out of the blue that they don't know. These are real people now. So when that happens, the control that we used to have as executives is gone. Right? And so we have to interact differently. And we have to know that not only are our staff going to get involved with our customers in ways maybe they didn't before, but we want to empower that in some ways that we can still be responsible with. Okay? So I want to make sure that you guys understand, I'm not talking about being irresponsible, right? I'm not just saying get on the internet and be reckless. That's not at all what I'm saying. But I'm encouraging you to start thinking like a business development person, to start thinking like a marketer, right? Because when we think this way, we start to see the landscape of opportunities get dialed in. And they get dialed in because we start seeing our customers have a certain level of interest in these kind of products, but they don't have interest in these products, right? We start thinking about customer acquisition differently. Right? Are we going to spend whatever it is, $30 per customer to generate a lead? Or are we going to spend, what is it now, 60 cents or something per letter to be sent in the mail? Or are we going to engage in social media activity, which isn't clearly monetized, right? Those are the kind of questions that we're asking now. And here's one of the big changes that I want to address with this idea of ROI. Because this is the #1 problem we have with embracing web and social media, because we have the ROI question in mind, right? Return on investment. 20 years ago, when I had my ad budget, and it was $10,000, you can name it month, quarter, annual, whatever your budget type is like. When it was $10,000, and I knew I would spend this, and there were only 3 places I could spend it at: the TV station, the newspaper, the radio, right? Because the market was totally different then. I could saturate the entire market with my $10,000, and I could see what happened to my sales. They would go up, right? Because everybody was here. Because they weren't anywhere else except at the park or in the backyard or whatever, right? So what would happen is this $10,000 would come in, and we'd see our sales do this. $50,000. Operating cost, 25 to 45% profit margin, right? So we'd see a $10,000 expense, and we would see a $50,000 growth. That's the cash machine. Boom, boom, boom. We want to run that, okay? So that's the way it used to be. Well, now, this same guy says, well, what's the ROI of social media? If I'm going to hire somebody, let's say I hired kids straight out of college, and so I pay this guy $24,000 a year, and I start thinking about $24,000 a year as the amount of hours in a day, or the amount of weeks in a year, or whatever we might do as an executive type to kind of put our hands on this, and we'd start saying things like, well, look, you're costing us about $16 an hour. You're going to be able to produce $16 an hour worth of value? And he's going to say, well, I don't know, I can get a bunch of tweets out, I can Facebook and stuff during that time, and I'll take care of all those things for you. But, I've done the math on this, and Jim, all we got to do is get like 3 customers a month, and you pay for me. And then you start to say, well, but I expect more than 3 customers a month, right? And so he's like, well, how many do you expect? You say, well, I expect 5 or 10, because that's what I expect, right? I want the ROI. And so he says, well, I don't know how I'm going to deliver 5 or 10. And you say, well, then why am I hiring you? Right? If you don't know how to deliver 5 or 10 customers, and I'm going to pay you to sit on Facebook all day, which is kind of the common expression, then why am I going to do that? Right? Well, in the meantime, these other guys are coming along and they get all this that we're talking about in this presentation, and they don't look at the $24,000 a month. They don't look at all that. Instead, they look at assets. They don't think about expenses. And they're in there talking to Jim, the CEO. They're saying, Jim, it doesn't work that way anymore. In fact, I got a white lab coat for you and a clear pair of goggles, and this is going to blow your mind, but I need you to come over here real quick and blend this thing. Right? That's what they're doing. And that whole dynamic is changing. And when that change happens, we have a change in the marketplace, we have a change in the way we run our business, and so there's a lot of things that are affected by it. And it's because that's where the market is now. 5 years ago, that's where the market was going. Now today, it's already happened, we're late, you know, that's what's going on. But as we think like the marketer, we start to look at ROI differently, right? So instead of thinking about what's the ROI on my sales, I have to start thinking like a business development person that says, well, what's the return on investment of the acquired customer or a specific share of mind where I know that they'll do business with me when they're ready, right? This is every sales rep. If you're a sales rep, raise your hand. In some form of selling. Everybody in here should raise your hand, right? Because we're all selling something, right? But everybody in here who's in sales thinks that way. They think, oh, I've got 6 appointments this week. 2 of them are lunches, and that's going to cost me about $100. And then the other 4 are going to cost me a couple hours each. You know, but when they're done, they're walking out of there going, I have an opportunity, right? Well, somehow Jim, the CEO, doesn't go, you know, that meal cost you $85 at Red Lobster, plus you were there 3 hours drinking cocktails until closing time, so you had a terminal lunch, and I didn't expect you to not come back at work, so did you get a sale? We don't do that. We know that's what's going to happen. But the same scenario takes place. Guy spends 3 hours on Facebook, and we're hounding him. Did you get a sale? Did you get a sale? I didn't see anything happen. Right? So I just want to separate those 2 ideas out. But as we think about assets, we start to think about this differently. Every customer opportunity becomes an asset. Whenever we're creating content to attract those people, we're creating an asset. When we create an experience that works, we're creating an asset. Now, when we create an ad, a one-time ad that we can only run once, that's an expense, right? When we create a television spot that works for 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, whatever it is, that becomes an expense. Now, we want to monetize it, and we track the value of it, right? But when we take a different step on this concept of ROI, and we start thinking about how much does it cost to get people on my newsletter list? How much does it cost to have people talking to me on Facebook? How much does it cost for me to actually run an experience online that comes close to an experience I might have in person with my sales rep, right? Because my sales rep can see however many people on the showroom floor, he can see however many people there are in the sales call he's going to. But if you have some decent people on Facebook, including yourselves, you got a 24/7 opportunity with your sales channel online creating assets. Now the trick is, what are you going to be doing online to do that? So my question to you is, can you define what you stand for? Can you clearly articulate what your purpose is? Do you know how you create value? Because I know you've been thinking a lot about how you create revenue, right? Because that's what we're in business to do, to create some sales. So I know you've been asking the sales question a lot. But have you actually sat down and said, I have a value? And I'm not just in the business to wring out every last dollar out of people. I'm in business to serve, right? Because that's the whole point. If we can't serve our customers, we're not going to keep them. Customers are our source of money. Our money is our business, so on and so forth. So once we know our purpose, we then have to start seeing the world through their eyes. And I want to change the way we think about what's in it for me. We can't think about what's in it for me anymore. We have to instead say, you're the customer, what's in it for you? Because we have to appreciate that the customer is always asking, what's in it for me? Right? So every engagement, every experience, every opportunity you have with a customer is a what's in it for me experience for them. So they're walking around going, okay, I'm at the Biz Dev Week, what's in it for me? I'm at the LIT station, what's in it for me? Oh, some free pins. I'm at the phone book station, what's in it for me? You know, right? That's what they're doing. They're walking by that, having the what's in it for me experience, okay? So once you realize that it's not about you, and you can really be okay with that, you have to be at peace with it, you know, get the Bible open, you know, get in your place of peace, right? It is about them, and it's always been about them. Okay? So the web and social media really enable that, because once we start to understand it's about them, then we care a lot more about them. They're not just a transaction anymore, right? And when they're not just a transaction anymore, they have a face, they have a name, they have a personality, they have other things going on, then we start to understand who they are. I mean, like literally who they are, their demographics, their interests, what's going on in their world, right? We've talked in the past about, in any kind of marketing, we talk about their income, the size of their house, what part of town they live in, right? All those demographics are still important. But what I'm talking about is the person who's actually standing in front of you in your business, or the person who's sending the check in on net 30 terms instead of 120 days late. You know, I'm talking about the real people who are actually doing business with you. You know who they are. You've had them over for lunch, you've talked to them, you've seen them in person. And once you do that, you start to go, so I've got a lot of people like Jim. Jim's a middle-aged guy, he likes to golf, a lot of discretionary income. But I also have this young group. And at first you might be like, well, that's just an anomaly, but this young group is also really interesting. Where's this young group coming from, right? You see a big gap between the old guy and this young group. Well, what's appealing to those people? Well, once you do that, you see two totally different types of customers, right? And we can run into the trap of saying, everybody's our customer. I run a restaurant, so everybody needs to eat, right? Raise your hand if you're one of those people, everybody's my customer people. One or two or three, okay? So we'll talk about that in the Q&A, okay? Because I want to try to give you some answers to that. But not everybody is, right? Instead, we have somebody who knows that there's a happy place that your product or service gives them, or there's a problem that your product and service gives them, or there's a lifestyle that your product and service gives them, right? There's something going on that there's a clear relationship between you and them. Maybe you just haven't seen it yet, okay? So the cool thing, though, is those things can be addressed. All those personality types can be addressed. And when we're talking about social media and web, the only way we can move to some real sense of ROI is when we know who they are. Because if we're just doing stuff and hoping it works, and we don't ever know who it is, we don't ever measure it, we don't see what drives more leads, we don't see what drives more newsletter signups, we don't see what drives more shares on our blog posts or whatever. If we're not watching for those things, then we're back to doing what we did in the 90s where we just run another ad. You follow me? And that's the ROI thinking of, I have $1,000 in, I'm going to run an ad and see what it does. And that's it. I either see it in the cash register or I don't. What I'm saying is there's all these points that happen before the cash register. And so now we get to start seeing, did it happen here, 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 or all of them, right? And as we do that, if we have several points along the way that land in the cash register at the very bottom, let's say that we understand what our sales cycle looks like, or the decision process, or some people call it the buyer's continuum, right? We know that somebody starts with a general need or an idea, and then they start to go looking for it, right? I think I want to be in a Taekwondo class. I wonder if there's any Taekwondo classes. I mean, nobody advertises this stuff. In the meanwhile, Miss Thibodeau over here goes, I'm spending all kinds of money to advertise. What do you mean nobody's advertising Taekwondo, right? So, but that's the way the customer works. The customer hasn't been seeing those ads because they weren't in a place of need, so they ignored it. Now they're in a place of need. Now they can't find it, so they're looking for it. Tell me, raise your hand if you think they go looking for it online. Okay, so we're in agreement, right? So once I realize I have a need, I'm going to go look for it online. Even when they very well could be 2 doors down from me. They're going to go look online. Are we in agreement?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't want you guys to think that I'm off in some crazy place. I'm literally saying we can be in this room right now and you guys could be looking at an alternative to a speaker named Justin McCullough. Okay, I mean that's the way it works now. So once we start to understand that this is reality, we can say we don't like it, we can disagree with it all we want, it doesn't change it, because what we're talking about is what we feel, not what the customer feels. Because what the customer feels is supremely empowered, information at their fingertips, they think they know what they want and need, right? And so you might say, for example, this customer, I'm gonna use Taekwondo classes as an example. You know, this person here should do my Taekwondo class, and let's say there's 4 options, 4 Taekwondo options, okay? Now, we can think about it all the way down in the ROI phase of how many acquisitions am I getting every month? How many new members am I signing up, right? That's the earlier version of, put $1,000 in and I created 5 new signups. That's what happened, right? And so you can say in that case, if I created 5 new signups, each one of them cost me what, $400, okay? And then you have the lifetime customer value, which means this customer on average stays with me 6 months, a year, 5 years? A year and a half. So let's just say 20 months. 20 months at $40 or $50, so I can do some math easily, right? So we're talking about a customer value of roughly $1,000. So Ms. Thibodeau here might say, well, if I'm going to keep them for a year and a half, I don't mind spending $400 on them because I'm going to make $600 on them. And maybe whenever I have 10 members, everything else is my profit. So she starts thinking about, once I get my 10 members, I'm set. Everything's budgeted, right? That's the budget concept. Everything's budgeted. Then everything over that is gravy. So if she gets 10 more members or 20 more or 30 more or whatever it is, she's in the happy place, right? So she's thinking about it in that context. Well, this idea here of the customer has a need for Taekwondo, they don't really know, in most cases, if they need Taekwondo, or maybe they need certain hours, maybe they need a certain price point, maybe they have a certain color for the kata, what is it called? Uniform. Uniform, thank you. You know, right? And so maybe somebody out there is looking for the pink uniforms, and who does the pink uniforms? And it sounds crazy, I know, but that's the way customers think. Okay? And they want to know, you know, the championship trophy, is it this big? Or is it like this big, or is it a medal, or what? Because, you know, I'm really proud of little Johnny, and I want little Johnny to have big stuff. Right? So, and again, that has nothing to do with what we're doing in our world. That has everything to do with what the customer is doing in their world. So they have 4 options. If I'm only talking about the what's in the bank, this final cash register idea, then what I'm really doing is saying, I'll let you buy from me. I'm going to advertise so you can buy from me. I'm going to advertise so you can buy from me. Take a step back. I'm going to say, you know, it's not just I'm going to advertise for you to buy from me. I'm going to advertise once a month. I do a walk-in clinic for free. So you can have an experience with me, right? Because some smart marketer along the way said, you know, how do people sign up for you without really knowing what you're about? Oh, well, they come in and they check it out and stuff. Oh, that sounds like an opportunity. Why don't we do a free one of those? How much would that cost you? Well, I think it'd be worth it because we'll try that. And then it worked, and they signed up, half the room when they did the free experience because we already knew they were interested, right? They don't show up if they're not interested. So above this, though, is what? It's the person who clicks on Facebook and sees Ms. Thibodeau breaking 2 stacks of bricks and goes, wow, that's awesome, right? Or that's somebody on Facebook who shares the little Johnny who got the big trophy, the picture of him because Ms. Thibodeau sat down and took a picture of it, tagged him on Facebook, and mommy was proud of him and shared it to her entire network, and it just so happens that her mommy is Ms. Bridgman over here, and that's the entire network of Better Business Bureau. Right? So, totally different experience. That's really what we're talking about. We're talking about changing the way we understand this experience. Thank you for letting me pick on you guys. Was that accurate, by the way, for you guys? Accurate? An accurate experience? So I'm not making this up completely, right? Now, as we start to think about our customer types, we need to think about Bob. Who is our best of best customer? I want to tell you a little bit about Bob. Bob is your saving grace. Bob cares so much about you, he's the one who sends you the referrals. Bob cares so much about you, he's the one who calls you and says, you know what, I tried calling 3 times today, nobody ever answered the phone. And I thought, well, I'll just keep calling until I got you because you probably needed to know that. Right? Bob is the one who says, you gave me net 30 terms, but I'm going to go ahead and play it today. Bob is the one who shows up with a golf buddy and says, I told Jim here he needed to talk to you, and I told him to go ahead and bring his checkbook. Thank you, Bob. Right? So every one of us have a Bob, and we can start finding our Bob. If you're in a corporate company and you don't have access to every one of your customers, you need to look for the Pareto principle, which is the 80-20. 20% of your customer base is producing 80% of your business. It's going to lead you to Bob pretty quick. Okay? You're going to have some people in there, or several, that are going to be driving a lot of your business. When you know who Bob is, then you really have a solid profile of your best customer, right? And you have to start thinking about, is Bob analytical? Is he emotional? Is he experiential, right? How did I get Bob? Was it my #1 sales rep? Or was it because I brought him to lunch, right? Once you start to understand who that is, then you can use social media to continue to attract more people like Bob. Now, the way we would do that is if we know that Bob is a researcher, he's analytical, he's studious, right? Then we're going to care a lot more, not about the dollar transaction, not about the free clinic, right? And I'll use the the Taekwondo example again just to keep it in context. And it's not at the social media level of breaking bricks. Instead, it's at this higher level, the Zen state of Taekwondo and what it does for mental preparation. And I'm writing and I'm advocating the highest level of the Taekwondo experience that somebody who has a studious mindset is going to get into. When I do that, I'm as far up as I think I can go for my best customer. It has nothing to do with the transaction. Instead, it has to do with authority. I am telling you with authority, you can go anywhere you want. But how many people locally are talking about the Zen state of Taekwondo, right? How many people are offering a mentors-only Taekwondo service? That's what I'm going to do for you. It's 3 times the cost, but I have found people like you, corporate executives, people who have busy work days, want to come in here and get break some bricks and all that kind of stuff, but you don't want to just let the steam out. You want to know that you're doing something with your mind, body, and spirit. That's what I'm doing. And that changes everything. Because then you know that that person is looking for that kind of an engagement, and he may be your most valuable customer that you can repeat over and over and over again. If you get 12 Bobs a year, that's 1 a month, what does that do to your business? Right? I mean, 1 Bob might account for 3 or 4 or 5 of your customers, and then they're going to bring more in. That's what we're talking about Bob. So please, if you didn't write that down, you got to get to know Bob. Okay? So as we leverage online, I think by this point, we've already kind of beat this point. We have to leverage online, right? We have to make this happen. We do that with a mindset of creating assets. Okay? Anybody here now want to take a stab at what an asset is in the context I'm saying?
An asset is a relationship.
No? Well, yeah, it is a person, right?
It's a relationship.
A relationship, that's right. What about what creates that relationship?
Knowing your
That's-
customers. You need
Yeah.
to tweet and Facebook.
Yeah, it's knowing, for example, this thing up here, this Zen state of Taekwondo, it's going ahead and writing this instead of talking about it. And saying that, man, my best customers care about the Zen state of Taekwondo, but you never tell anybody. Right? That's what I mean. Creating an asset. Right? So instead of just posting on Facebook, you begin to post on Facebook about the Zen state of Taekwondo, or whatever. Okay? So what I really mean is we're going to transfer the idea of I'm just going to run an ad for $1,000 and see what happens to I'm going to create content and experience, some sort of an online resource that does not currently exist with my money to make it mine. So it's mine all the time. It's not a transactional ad, but it can pay off over time because I understand who my customer is and who cares about that kind of content. An example of this might be a calculator. The banks were the first ones to really get this idea. They put together mortgage calculators and they found out, wow, when I put a mortgage calculator up, I get more loan offers. More loan inquiries. That's an asset. Somebody sat down and had to code that, and maybe those original loan calculators that were online in the late 90s, maybe those loan calculators cost about $4,000 to create at that time. So can you imagine going to the geek programmer going, it's going to cost $4,000? Seriously, for a calculator that you and I use right here? It's going to cost $4,000 for that? What's the ROI on that? Right? But they said, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and do it. We're going to see what happens. And then somebody came along looking on the internet, one of the early adopters, and they said, oh, look, this guy's got a loan calculator and he's in town. I'm going to run my loan calculation for a 30-year mortgage. Next thing you know, he gets an email that says, I'm interested in seeing if I can get a mortgage with you guys because I think it's going to fit my payment schedule. Right? That's an asset. That's what I mean by a marketing asset. Okay? So we want to now move into this idea not of just creating a sell. And I want you, it's not heresy, I promise. I'm still advocating a sell. Okay? Because we still want to get down to the transaction. But now we want to start thinking about attracting these things instead. We want to attract inbound links. Right? That's when somebody else on another website or on social media links to us because they were probably Bob. They think we're awesome. So they're going to talk about it on Facebook. Right? They're going to be our followers. Those are the people that are following us on the social media networks. You know? They're going to be people who have subscribed to our newsletter, Hopefully they're people that encourage other people to subscribe to our newsletter. There are people like Deb who have been kind enough over the years to give testimonials, to speak and vouch for the experience, right? Now, if you have a Bob and your Bob is referring business to you, why don't you ask him for the testimonial? Why don't you ask him to get on your newsletter? Why don't you ask him to get on Facebook? Because he may say, well, I didn't know. But when he does, you give him an opportunity to amplify you, right? So these are the kind of things that we want to think about now. And it's not because we don't want to attract the last bullet point that doesn't exist on this slide, which is sales. We do want to attract sales. But this is the new vehicle that gets us there, okay? So once we start moving down this path and we understand that what we're really doing is driving a whole new type of customer. And I don't mean that earlier we were talking about customer types. I mean a whole different type of customer, meaning I don't just care about the customer with his wallet out. I care about the will-be customer who can be loyal to me. The will-be customer who will consume my information. The will-be customer who cares about the things that I care about. And for the record, guys and girls, what that means is if you're an outdoorsman, trust me, you start to think this way and you're going to attract new customers who are outdoorsmen too, because they respect and appreciate what it is that you're doing. Right? You run a marathon and you post that up on Facebook, and you talk about how the discipline that goes along with it, you're going to attract other people who have that same mindset for discipline. Because you start getting into a thought process of people who go, I know how hard that is. Right? You're in the mortgage lending business and you're the only one talking about repeatedly closing business, you're going to attract realtors. You're going to attract other people who see that you are consistently generating results. You must be doing something that nobody else is. You understand what I'm saying? So moving from followers and advocates and all that kind of stuff, we start to really think about what is the asset that we can create. I gave the example of the mortgage calculator, right? That could be if you're a service company, that could be an online bid generator, right? You might say, well, Justin, man, I can't have my competition do that. Then they can check out all my prices. They already are, right? Your customer wants to know though. Don't you want your customer? Right? This is where we're at, because while you're too busy thinking about all that, the customer Google search something else to find somebody who would give that information to them. I mean, I'm for real, guys. This is how it works. Okay? So you want to look at assets or search engine optimized pages. You might be thinking, okay, I get it. I know what a page is. I know what search engines are. But what I'm saying is, instead of having a generic homepage that you think is nice, but it's kind of like a corporate brochure, instead you start thinking about, well, what does the customer care about? What are they actually thinking about? What's the language they use? Are they saying deferred dividends, you know? Or are they saying retirement with a 4%, you know, growth agent or whatever the terms are, right? When you start thinking like the customer, you start using those terms instead of your terms, right? So I don't know all the degrees of being a black belt, but I know one of them that's pretty important. That's the black belt, right? Well, Ms. Thibodeau may think the black belt is pretty easy to attain. Maybe you get there in a year and a half. I don't know. How long does it take to get there? 30 months. Okay. How long does it take to get to the highest degree black belt?
Years, well, like 30 years.
30 years. Okay. So the average customer probably doesn't know about the highest degree unless they studied it. And if they've studied it, it's because they were up here at this level, right? But the basic customer is down here at this level. Give me a free clinic, because I want my boy to be a black belt. Okay? And then whenever Ms. Thibodeau says, well, you can get there in 30 months, that looks doable. But then whenever she says, but it'd take 30 years to get to the highest degree, most of the time, mommy will say, that's okay, I just want him to be a black belt. Okay? Because that's what she knows and understands. Now, the reason I say that is, let's say that the highest degree black belt wasn't called black belt anymore. Let's just say it was called rainbow belt or something. Nobody knows about it except the people who reach that level. If that's all I'm marketing, then I'm guaranteed to only generate results for that kind of person, right? Because that's the only thing I'm talking about, and the only people who are using that language are people in the know, right? So if I'm a welder, and I've got all kinds of welding services, and I'm too busy talking about the tools, I'm too busy talking about the acetylene torches and all these other things that make the welding enterprise work, and in the meantime, my average customer is a commercial entity or an industrial entity of, let's say, 50 million or less, which is to say not a refinery, okay? Then I better not be speaking in refinery terms, right? Instead, I better be speaking average Joe customer terms with I-beam welds and things like that. Whatever that language is, that's really what I'm talking about. So search engine optimized pages are pages that are tuned to that voice. So if you've got somebody that's at this highest degree black belt, you might have one page only about that service, completely tuned to it, but not instead of the one page or several pages that talk about black belt in 30 months.
How do you get search engine optimized pages?
That's a good question. I'm going to go ahead and post that up here so we can come back to that. How you get SEO pages. We're going to come back to that, okay? We're going to answer that. Lead generation forms. These are other ways, again, on these maybe SEO pages, these optimized pages. You might have a form that says, you know, normal program is 30 months to a black belt. Sign up here and I'll show you how to do it in half the time. Work out twice a day, whatever it is, right? Mailing list, constant communication. You want to get people on your list. Once they're on the list, they're in your Rolodex, only you actually call the people, right? So instead of just being in your Rolodex, now you send an email to them occasionally, hopefully more often than not. And then they fold into your business because they start to understand more about you in a consistent manner. Social networks, Facebook, LinkedIn, all these different areas. Those are the things that we're talking about here. Is once I have access to a network and I get on it and I start to cultivate it, it becomes an asset. Okay. Shareable content. So whatever my business is about, producing shareable content for that, which would be like, for example, whenever I posted earlier about coming here today, I looked for a pretty good page that I might share on Facebook about this experience. But the page wasn't really created to be shareable content, even though it had share options. Does that make sense? And so I posted it, and I think it had the number 4 showing as the image icon. Didn't even show the logo of the BizDev Week. And I mean, you get what I'm saying? I mean, it was a page I could share, but it wasn't really the best page. So shareable content matters. The name of your domain name, and then of course, the what's in it for me content. And when I say content, guys, I am talking about anything: images, video, text, PDFs, documents, right? And don't misunderstand me. I mean, if all you have right now is an Excel spreadsheet and you're okay with anybody having it, post your Excel spreadsheet and say why it's important to have, or put it behind a form that you fill out to get the spreadsheet. Okay? You don't have to have really, really great looking stuff all the time, although it does matter. It's not the only thing to it, you know. So we've talked about the changes in the marketplace. We've talked about the changes in the customer. We've talked about everybody's empowered now. So what we really now need to say is, okay, so if I get on Facebook, what am I going to do with it? What am I actually going to do with blogging? What am I actually going to do with my lead generation efforts and all that? What am I trying to get to? When you understand what you stand for, when you understand what your customer is thinking and what they're concerned about, then you start doing what's on this slide right now. You create authority for yourself. You create visibility, right? You begin to have this kind of game plan. If you stand for integrity, speed, you're not the cheapest though, right? Maybe you're high quality, expensive, speed, integrity, then your communications better not have cuss words and have, you know, these flippant remarks about the right wing movement and whatever, right? Because that's not in character. And so you're not going to attract people with those same interests if you look like those aren't your interests too, right? So, you know, another really great thing to do with social media is there's a man, and he's not here today, but his name's Roy West. Have you guys heard of Roy? Yeah. So Roy will invite you onto his radio station. Roy will talk about you on his Facebook channel, right? What Roy has done is he's made the decision to create a platform, not for him to stand on, but for you to stand on, okay? So think about that. I'm going to have a whole experience dedicated to the customer instead of a whole experience dedicated to me. I had a conversation with a convenience store, and we had we were about the same point. And he's like, well, I don't think that'll work for a convenience station. I mean, you know, people get gas, people get, you know, beverages and stuff. And I won't say the name of the company, but I think you'll get the gist of it. I suggested, well, why don't you have a huge crawfish statue out front and get Polaroid pictures out front? I said, well, why would I do that? I said, because you'll be the only convenience store in town that has a huge crawfish out front that you can take pictures in front of. And he said, well, why won't anybody care about that? Who wants my Polaroid? I said, the Polaroid's just a prop. It shows that you care. They're going to do it on their smartphone. And you're going to have your logo there, and you're going to have your website address there. And people are going to go, just like Buc-ee's, they're going to care about your crawfish, right? You get that?
Every time we go to Buc-ee's, my daughter has to have her picture
Okay.
with the
Yeah.
thing.
That's right, and that's my point. That's the creation of an idea and then handing it over to the customer. Okay, so you know, obviously these are all different according to your industry. But what I'm saying is there's one in every industry, or there's many in every industry. Just like the blender guy could have said, nobody will ever see blenders as having a personality, right? Well, you know, I'll give you a perfect example again on the blender. You got the little Chuck Norris figurine, right? The little action figure Chuck Norris, puts it in there, blends it, and he says, finally something tougher than Chuck Norris. Well, I mean, you know, come on, that's good stuff. That's just being aware of that identity and what goes along with it. So I think this may very well be our last slide before the Q&A. But this is all about attraction. This is about drawing people in. And we do that with engaging content. We do that with images. We offer images. We ask questions, especially on networks, right? Asking the question, for example, here's the kind of question I ask. Right? Just the other day I asked, what is the hardest thing you learned in business? Kind of like, you know, what did you learn the hard way, right? I only had 2 respondents. Not a great question, obviously. I had 2 respondents. One was my brother-in-law in Austin, who was trying to get his business off the ground. Okay? And then the other was Christopher Penn, who's considered an authority in social media, written several books, not just a couple thousand, but hundreds of thousands of followers. Okay, so here's what I want to share with you. It's not that I'm all that important. It's that here I am in Southeast Texas, and I'm following him, and he's following me. And he's up north in Boston, I think. And he sees the question, and it's interesting enough to him that he wants to get himself involved and respond to it. So now we've leveled the playing field with a published author, a pro speaker. This guy probably makes $20,000 every time he gives a presentation. And he's just chatting with me on Facebook. That's the world we live in, okay? So,
What did he say?
he said, that's a
Did I
great,
hear
yeah.
the value?
Yeah, he said, everything is hard, right? We already know this. Everything is hard. And the things that we don't prepare to be hard will become hard after we realize we weren't prepared, right? That's pretty much what he said. That was the summary of what he said. And, you know, when we talk about the golf tournament, or we talk about the charity fundraiser for Johnny who has scoliosis or whatever, right? When we talk about causes that matter, when we talk about events that matter, when we talk about people that matter, things that are not about us, but are interesting, that generates attention, that generates engagement. And what happens is we start to break down this idea of being a corporate entity, and people get to know us. And what happens when they know us? They begin to like us. When they begin to like us, they trust us, and that's the formula for a sale, right? So ultimately, what we're talking about is using new tools to generate those same results. Same results. We're just using totally different tactics to get there, okay? So I guess kind of in closing, it's really not at all about social media, okay? It's just the thing. What it's about, though, is your mindset. It's about agreeing that you're not in 1980 anymore, and you want to operate in current times, and you want to stop your competition from taking on your business because they've already adopted that mindset, right? And then it's about not only having that mindset, but having it with wisdom, right? So whenever I have wisdom in this mindset, I don't just hop on Facebook for 5 hours. I don't just hire the college kid to sit on payroll for $20,000 or $30,000 a year. I have him thinking about my customers. I have him producing the assets. I have him tweeting, Facebooking, creating YouTubes that all add up to this intentional picture about what we stand for. Make sense? Because I begin to move my physical self to a digital self that always works. And I can do that through videos, I can do it through testimonials, I can do it through Bob. And every time I empower others to share what I stand for, then they become advocates, and that ripples out, and that's how we grow our network, right? Such to the point where somebody comes along and they say, well, I'm sure there are like a bunch of mortgage people, but I know this guy named Roy. Roy's really cool. He's always nice. He's always talking about this. And I think my friend was on the radio show, and I was on that. And he seems like a really nice guy. You got to call him. And then Roy gets you some more business. In the meantime, you've got some other mortgage lender in town who's been in business for 25 years, who used to own the marketplace, who used to be number one, who's sitting around going, am I going to have to downsize my staff? Am I going to have to downsize my office? Because all he can think about is what he used to do in the 90s. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, it's not the goal. What we want to do instead is we want to get to know them before there's a need. We want to have a relationship with them because they fit our profile, what we know and understand to work for our business. And then we want to create a lot of different assets that can facilitate that over time. So, I think it's open floor now. I got one question already. Are we doing okay? Is there anybody in here that expected something totally different to happen in this presentation? Yes.
I expected to be slightly bored and not really learn anything. Just the opposite. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And your name is Eric, right? Eric, thank you for the endorsement. You can send that in writing.
Yeah. You can find me on your
Yeah.
Facebook.
After it's over.
Yeah. Thank you very much, though. And my hope is, as we go through this Q&A session, that I'm actually going to prompt you guys to talk, because here's what's going to happen. I encourage you to not leave, because this was the setting the stage. What's going to happen next is how you apply it to yourself. And as I'm talking to maybe you, somebody else in here is going to go, oh, that makes sense. Okay? So if you need to leave, I understand, but this is going to be some good stuff that's going to come up. We've got how to get SEO pages with an eraser. Do we have any other questions to put up here before we kind of prod through it?
I have one.
Yes.
What if your customers are all competitors for each other? Your customers compete against each other.
All of your customers compete against each other.
Exactly.
Can you share more details, or does it need to be that vague?
No, I mean, I'm a title company, so my customers, these
She's
people
whispering
and
to her that
more.
that's her Bob, and then she's whispering to me and saying I'm her Bob.
Nice. Well done.
She
Well
does it
done.
really well.
That's right.
Use it.
Yeah, exactly.
And all of y'all are my Bob.
There you go. Okay, so that's an excellent question. So what I heard there was,
She has competing Bobs.
Yeah.
what I heard
But they
was,
all have the same needs. Yeah.
It makes it hard to promote them. It's hard to promote one Bob without the other Bob being upset with you.
No,
They can be-
they'll want
You want them to
promoted
promote
next.
you, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I will do it, promote me, but
okay, so that's same. You have the same customer type, but they compete with one another. So I'm going to tell you right now, encouraging a platform is going to be tough, right?
right.
But see, I personally believe that we need to encourage marketplace growth, and we need to embrace our competitors. I know that's probably heresy to some. I think we can love on our competitors just as much as we want to say we have competitors. I think we can love on them too. I might suggest that even though the two ladies are competing against each other, you're a common ground that they both agree in, right? And now you may not put them at the same table at the same time and all that, but there are a couple things that you might do. For one, you might, for example, develop an online channel, right? Whether or not it's Facebook, or if it's a blog, or if it's even an online radio show, and invite them into that one at a time so they can participate. Now, what you're doing, what you would be doing, and you guys can close your ears because I don't want to give away the secrets that you might use, but what you might do is you might turn around and say, hey, Adeb, you're going to come on the show on Tuesday, and because I'm telling you 2 weeks in advance, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody you're going to be on my radio show on Tuesday? So Deb goes and tells everybody, hey, tune into the radio show, and it could be online, and you're going to record the MP3 file, right? And she comes on Tuesday. Well, in the meantime, you go over to Sally, and you're like, hey, Sally, 3 Tuesdays from now, I want you to be on the show. Go ahead and make plans, tell everybody about it, and I'll send you the audio file so you can share it, all right? So you facilitate both of those ideas. You build your network by leveraging their network, which is the whole send your emails out. But then you turn around and you say, I recorded this MP3. Would you like the MP3? And I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and put it on CD for you. And because she's your customer, your Bob, you go, not only will I put it on CD for you, I'm going to go ahead and give you about 20 CDs. And I'm going to put your name on it. and I'm going to put your contact information on it, with mine like real small below. I'm going to make 20 of these CDs. I'm going to give them to you. And if you feel compelled to, if you really liked what you talked about, because I thought it was great, you can hand these CDs maybe to prospects or other people that you think might want to see how awesome you are. And so you give them the CD. Now, in the meantime, that thinks you're kind of ridiculous, right? Because nobody's doing that. You get on a radio show, but she has a delightful experience with you, because I know you would do that. And then she gets this CD brought to her, and she can't believe you actually did everything you said you would do. And it looks professional and everything, which, by the way, you can do super cheap, because we're empowered now. We have all this technology available. But what's not readily available is a desire to do it. So now all of a sudden, Deb gets this stack of CDs and realizes nobody else is doing this. I'm encouraged by this. I think this person gets it. I want to do more business here. I'm motivated, I'm interested. And so you go up on that side, right? You create brownie points, if you want to call them that. In the meantime, you do the exact same thing with Sally. Then maybe Sally's not nearly as motivated. Maybe she's not nearly as excited, right? But she needs help with sales. And she's encouraged by the fact that you're getting her a sales tool. So she has a totally different experience, but instead you create authority that you're a professional marketer, right? You're a provider, but now she sees that you're actually going to help her generate business, not just take her business. Is that a decent example for you?
Sure.
Okay. So we still have the SEO pages, and I want to kind of hold on to that for a minute, because that takes a little bit to talk about. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I work at Buckner Children and Family Services. So I'm a regional volunteer coordinator over there. So I'm basically like selling a volunteer experience. But it's a unique challenge because the volunteers that we get, there's so many volunteer opportunities, it's huge. However, because the children have been taken away because of abuse and neglect, they don't get to interact with the child or see pictures of the child or that sort of thing. So it's almost like the end result of that feel-good experience, or the presents they send, they don't get to see the children open. So a lot of them miss the experience that they were wanting, which was the nurturing and the, I know that child's been affected because, because they miss the end result. So it's not, it's not the glamorous or the experience that they were looking for. So we lose our volunteers that way. So I was thinking if they're, especially with social media, I can post pictures of the volunteers, like, I don't know, bringing in gifts or making boxes, but I can't, actually post the children using the gifts, opening the boxes, and how I can make that a better presentation, or I guess a better.
Yeah, so in your case, I would first start with whatever's on the fringes that you know you can do, put it in action now, and see what happens. Because you need to start developing some momentum going that direction. Now, whenever I do some consulting and stuff, we typically will map out the strategic elements of that. But I want to encourage you, though, that what you need right now is you just need momentum. You need to start putting it in action with some kind of proof of concept, right? So when we were talking about the ROI deal earlier, you're not looking for an ROI here. What you're looking for instead is this the kind of experience that works for my customer type? That's what you're looking for. And so this would be like an early test to an idea that could be a totally valid marketing practice with social media. But for now, what you want to do is you want to try it, you want to see what it takes to do it, you want to encourage response and activity around it, and you want to actually measure that response. So I would say don't go gangbusters like, oh my gosh, this is going to be groundbreaking. Instead say, this is a solid idea, I want to try it. And then you might also try the same concept with a little flip cam with a little, 1 or 2 minute, interstitial kind of videos that are maybe candid, real live, candid stuff that allow more of the emotional underpinning to take place instead of just the story. Because you have a different dynamic going on the emotional side. Yeah, that's kind of what I would suggest starting with. Eric, you have a question, buddy?
Just soaking it up.
Soaking it up. What about you, sir?
Just trying to get on board with this idea. I've been fighting it for years.
Okay, all right.
Just trying to still sell it in my mind that it's something I need to tackle.
Okay, so let's use that as the question. 900 million users on Facebook. So let's start with Facebook. If you are being hesitant in any way, generally speaking, get on Facebook. Use Facebook. You might be going, well, my customers aren't on Facebook. Maybe. But if you're not on Facebook, you don't know if your customers are either, right? You need to go ahead and get on that path. You need to get on Facebook. You need to have that experience. You need to go ahead and start thinking about what you stand for. Make sure your Facebook represents that, right? You can show out pictures of the kids. I personally, I'm going to have, I pretty much am transparent with my online life, with my, real life. Maybe online life, real life. Which way did that go? I don't know. My online life, my real life. Not my real life, my online life. But okay, so get on Facebook. Start working on your, what you stand for, the things that you care about, and you're going to start trying to watch your network. It's going to be employees, it's going to be coworkers, it's going to be friends, it's going to be family, it's going to be professional contacts. It may not be all your customer types at this point, but you want to start planting the seed so you can kind of branch out from them, right? So the way that works is you've got, let's say you have a vendor, right? You're talking to your vendor over a buying session. You say, hey man, are you on Facebook? I've been thinking about that. And he says, yeah, I am. Say, all right, well, how can I find you or whatever? You go and find him, and then you start looking at his network, all of his friends. Oh, look, there's John, the CEO of my competitor. Oh, there's Bill, his other buyer, or whatever, right? And you start to kind of mine for that data. You can follow if you want, or you can just get a feel for what's going on with this guy, who's his connections list look like, right? Because you can see all that stuff unless they have it disabled. Most people don't, though. So start there, start posting content, start getting an idea of friends, and use it with intention. Know every day you want to make friend connections. And it's not just friend, right? I'm talking about professional contacts. The Facebook and Power.
Google Plus. That seems to be the new thing out there, and when I signed up, can't figure out how to use it.
Yeah, it's
why do they make them so complicated? I mean, if they want people on there.
We can't use Facebook over here, okay?
I know, Facebook keeps changing, which drives me crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, and what I wouldn't do for Facebook to give you some fonts and bold and colors and things you can work with to make things more interesting,
Yeah.
But
Bedazzle your page.
yeah, it's not.
You
You have to be creative.
You have to put an app on it.
Yeah.
See, I don't.
You can. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can.
Yeah, you can. It's a lot of work.
So Google Plus is Google Plus right now is, I would still consider to be in the early adopter phase, although they've got a huge network for how immature they are in terms of how old they are. But right now, what I'm seeing is Facebook has become kind of the everyman's social media. Google Plus has kind of popped out of this other side and said, nerds, elitists, tech types, you guys are going over here.
So I don't need to go there.
I'm just making I'm totally generalizing because I'm not
Depends on what
saying
you're
that
selling.
yeah, I'm not saying that the people you need are not in Google Plus. I'm just simply saying, as a general expression, Google Plus has carved out a space amongst techie people who are more seriously committed to technology. It doesn't mean that people who are less committed aren't
That makes
there.
life so much more challenging to try to figure out
Yeah.
how to.
It's a difference between a Mac and a PC.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if this is really a question or a statement, but like she said, everyone knows, everything changes so fast, and I'm going to use LinkedIn as a example. Well, I keep saying I clicked on the LinkedIn thing. Now, as far as how to use it or anything, and I have, it says that, so-and-so see their contacts or see their something or another, and when I go click, then you've got to do something else that I haven't done before. And I don't have that kind of time to keep clicking to even know if I'm in the right place or not. As far as like the Google Plus thing, and then I probably get 10 calls a day to update my Google address and press 1. And now I keep them on the phone just as long as they keep me on the phone going. Then at the end when they want me to pay or give the credit card, I go, well, y'all just said it was updating my address. And then they have to give this bill or they hang up on me. So you really don't know what direction to go, which one is to spend that time to keep clicking to figure it all out. And then it changes.
And then those people that do call every day, what they are selling is the,
SEO?
yes.
Sure. Yeah, so,
Hey, someone just did my SEO.
first thing I would say is this idea of what to use, what's the priority, what should I spend my time on. I think the first thing is if you accept the mindset that I've presented today, then you accept that there's going to be a greater emphasis in time and in energy, right? Because that's what comes along with that kind of understanding. So if you go ahead and say, yeah, this is serious enough, I want to do it. I agree that this is where my customers are or can be, or this is how I can generate customers, then you're going to want to spend a little bit of time just educating yourself. And that's going to be somewhat like what you said in here today. You took that time today. There are a lot of informational videos like on YouTube and things like that that are free resources to help you understand what the technology does or what the service does. But again, I would suggest that we tend to gather information this way. This is the way we tend to gather information. We start in one spot, and then we go out here. We go, oh, I don't know about that. That's kind of scary. And then we come back. We go out here, and I don't know about that. And we do this for a little while, right?
Well,
and
we're
then,
still doing it.
Yeah, you still do it, right? Yeah. And then you kind of start to, once you get what you think is kind of the lay of the land, even though you haven't gotten advanced anything, you start to go, well, at least I know what LinkedIn now is. At least I know what Twitter is. We start to kind of do this little spiral thing. And that's pretty much that. Spiral is how we bloom out. And once we bloom out to a point where we think we figured it out, we just come back to a core place and go, well, now I know I don't want to use LinkedIn, and now I know I don't want to use YouTube, even though I had to expand out to it to figure out if I wanted it or needed it. And you just need to expect that that's going to happen. You're going to look at a service that may or may not be a good fit, or an app or something like that. And so that's just going to happen. But again, right now I say investing in your website as a destination, creating assets on it, lead generation forms, things like that. You create something that's catching and growing your funnel, your business funnel, that communicates your values, what you stand for, et cetera, in the what's in it for me language of the customer. So you have to have that website kind of as the core thing that you're operating from, because that's where you secure your real kind of marketing assets. Whereas Facebook and your followers and all that kind of stuff, they're marketing assets as well, but you don't own them, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they're in the channel at that time, they see whatever you post, and if they're not, they're not. But once you get them on your email list or they become a buyer, the game changes, because then you really have a direct relationship with them. And that's what you're looking for.
I have something about that.
Okay.
We're still trying to figure all this stuff out, fighting it, resisting, I guess.
Sure.
And just kind of an open question. I don't go to Facebook. I don't deal with it. It's
Okay.
just something I've got to get on board with.
Okay.
But do people, it's a two-way street, I guess. They can find you on Facebook and then go to your website, or they can go to your website and then go to your Facebook.
Correct.
Okay? Do a lot of people in here do that? Go to a
Yes.
company's website and
Yes.
then go to their Facebook
Yes.
account?
Yes.
Yes.
Why?
Do you know? Yeah. Do you know why you do that?
Because
I want to know why.
the Facebook page builds your relationship with that client. The website gives you information about it.
Sure.
But if you like the information, you go to their Facebook page and you see how they're interacting with other people. So you see how they relate to other
Okay,
people.
as a business owner, who has time for that?
You make time.
You make time for it. 5 o'clock in the morning is a wonderful time to get on Facebook and see what your people are doing. If you,
That's why I resisted it.
I have a very customer-based business, and every morning when I get up and get my cup of coffee, I get on the computer. I do two things. I get up, I get on my email and see if I have anything I missed, and I get on Facebook and I start looking and seeing what's happening in the life of my customers. What things do I need to send somebody a gift card or a birthday card?
She's mining for gold. That's what
Yeah.
she's doing. Every day she gets on and she starts mining for gold. Sometimes it's as easy as a comment on a
Or
lifestyle.
just a like.
Yeah, or a
Just
like.
a like.
That's right.
Like
Because
is
it's
better.
presence, right? All those things create an impression.
Sure. But your customers are there in your face every day.
Well,
Mine
This is
Mine.
this is one of my customers.
Yeah.
And she and I have built a really close relationship because we Facebook with each other as well as see each other.
Yeah.
And
I'm
I have
sorry, I'm
friends
not
I have
interested, but I
never
know I need
met
to do
now
it. As a
through
business owner, I
Facebook.
need to do it, but I'm not interested. I'm not
And
interested.
and-
coupons.
Yeah.
See that now
Yeah.
you've got my interest.
Yeah.
You
Car
said,
sale, or you having this?
right,
big-
'cause
Yeah.
I only see my customers once every 2 or 3 years. I don't see them often, but I have,
But you want referrals, and
I
if
do
you
want
get
referrals.
good testimonials,
Right.
that they post on your Facebook
That-
page.
there's-
Sure, we did a fantastic job, this crew cleaned up great, they're
Right.
taking up my business.
And that's-
Then
That's it.
their friends.
And that's
are
why
gonna
I'm
go,
trying to
I need my.
Right,
my-
Get
and you
this in
take
my-
pictures of your finished product, you put it
Yeah.
on Facebook,
Yeah.
somebody likes that, they
Yeah.
share it with their friend, hey, look at what Kirby did, you know, to my car, you
Yeah.
know? And then the next thing you know, well, they're showing it, hey, look, this place did a really good job, I'm gonna pass that on to
Sure.
my friends, and I share it with my
I
friends.
see.
I actually use my Facebook, because I'm in sales, I'm not a business owner. But I use my Facebook to promote my clients. I do, I like them, and then I also put their links to their websites on there and things like that. And when I go to somebody's website, if they have a link to Facebook, I go there to see a little bit more personal information, and it helps me build whether or not I can trust that person down there.
And that's the essence of it right there. When people go to a website, if they are interested, they'll click over to your Facebook in order to really know who you are.
Okay, well, then, we're gonna talk about, I'll go ahead, if you're on Facebook, because I was gonna switch gears just for a second to this bird thing, this tweeter stuff.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Tweet.
Go ahead and give me
It's
your-
a whole other animal you gotta try to babysit. I'm sorry, I've downsized and my plate's full.
Well, there's
Yeah.
a thing called Hootsuite, there's other programs like that, where you can put out the same information at all the different social media sites all at once.
At once.
You schedule.
So,
Yeah.
I don't really know how to tweet, but I know how to get on Hootsuite
Yeah.
and make sure that my stuff is on it. I don't have to send a line request
Are
for
you not supposed to promote your business? Can
Let
I
me
do it
tell
for
you,
Is that one on your Facebook?
51% of the United States is on Facebook.
Oh,
Over
sure.
How much
Well,
of
if
it
you,
is?
Grab
if
that
you
guy.
take,
Because that's not the biggest part of my market. So
oh my
just-
God.
My husband's on it,
Yeah.
my husband's on it.
Scott's on, my husband's on the.
Okay, all right. Okay, guys, so this is awesome. I love the communication, but when 5 people are talking, that's tough, okay?
That's what it's like, trying to figure out Facebook.
We brought us into the 21st century, let me tell you, it was 5 women kicking and screaming because, but this is what he does for a living, and it shows you how to
Right.
tie all this in together.
Yeah,
And it's an eye-opening experience. He's very affordable.
Yeah.
He caters to what you want. In fact, the funniest example I can give you is on our website. You know how this is how dumb we are. You know how when you roll down your website and, you know, I kept telling him, you want a button down there that says, go back to the top. He said, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard of. And I'm like, oh, a button, this is my webpage. And so we have a button on the bottom page. But he is very good.
Oh,
I'm sold on the idea.
It really,
of-
I'm hurt.
It was about 2 years of being on, email and stuff like that before I even knew you scrolled down. And there were more, came up, I'm like, oh, there's more to it. I was wondering how people found things.
So give him,
Tim?
My question,
Yeah.
as far as Facebook is concerned, you know, we all have our personal Facebook. We also have a company Facebook. As an agent, do you suggest that we do a somewhat separate Facebook account like Tammy Lincecum, Coldwell Banker?
we're struggling with that piece of it.
That gets split so many different ways. I mean, there's some best practices, but whenever you see people in the marketplace, especially in our marketplace, it happens a lot, just the way you said. That's a
Because
way
I
to.
don't want them to know that my child walked the first time, you know, that's not an everybody thing. If I'm gonna do a Facebook page, I'm assuming that it's better that I do more of a sales market approach, you know, look at my brand new customer, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I would set up your own business Facebook page, just
I
for
was gonna
that.
ask that.
Because you
Should I
can
do that?
message now
Yeah.
through it, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Everybody necessarily wants to know that you have
Yeah,
a
I've got
customer or a new
the page, I've got
listing.
the Facebook, and
All I want to know is
coordinate
how
with each
the
other.
customers are these.
But my personal stuff doesn't
Sure.
go on my business.
Now, I will tell you
Stuff
that
goes on
those
my-
lifestyle experience, those life experiences, they're just as valuable over coffee as they're on Facebook. So if you're willing to share those things on the phone with a friend or a coworker or with a professional contact or a prospect, then why not? You know, I mean, and that's really that's going to be a decision you have to make. But what I'm going to say is ultimately, it's the bonds, it's the ties that bond that really make a big difference. And those things come
And that's,
usually.
I feel that, that's why I'm fighting the Facebook thing. I don't really feel that it's going to help me in any way.
Sure.
As far as that goes, because I do have bobs,
Yeah.
and my bobs work well for me.
Cool. Good.
When you,
Yes, ma'am.
when you put your customer on your Facebook to promote them, which I totally get, that it's more about them than it is about us, and you tell their experiences, what's the legal, problem with that? Do you have to get something signed by?
Well, I mean, I don't think
you
you're
know,
disparaging
you get
anybody.
permission.
It's a social network, it's a public place. I mean, if you do something that's defaming,
I think you just need to tell them.
use caution.
I mean, what's the,
No.
I'm always worried about.
No, you don't have to tell them, but what I mean, you don't have to tell them, but what I would do is I would tag them.
Yeah, I
in the
would tag
post.
them.
And that clearly shows them that you're kind of bragging about it. You're promoting them to your
And
network.
if they don't like it, they can tell you about it. and
Yeah,
have
they
it
can
taken off.
untag or they can actually delete the post. That's generally how it works now. You do it first, then when somebody reacts to it, then you take it down.
Okay. And all I know is positive things, I mean, I don't really don't care, but they have a choice, like, they're just saying, take it off.
Sure.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, it's more like social media, you're not pushing stuff at them, they pull what they want off of it. So you're not gonna give them too much because they're gonna choose when and if they want to engage with you.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true.
Sure.
Can I talk about SEO for a minute? Because this is a totally different topic.
Your class, man, go ahead.
So SEO, Kirby, let's say somebody comes to your website through SEO, which would be they does keyword search on Google, Yahoo, Bing, wherever, and you were a listing in the top results or wherever they were willing to go to. And they got over to your website because of the results of that search. That's something very different than, like in my case, I have attorneyminds.com or justinmccullough.com, right? I'm telling you where to go, okay? Actually, I want to use this as a quick story. I was a reluctant social media person for a while myself. In 2005, was in a totally different place in my company. We were doing custom software development, and we were doing web marketing and some other things. And we did a lot of, well, it was just all custom development. It was really geek stuff, but it was based on the web, and so it was web technologies, and it was still marketing, but it had a lot of horsepower to the engine, if you want to kind of put some context to it. And so we started building a content management system, which is a type of website you can update yourself. And we got on the third version of this content management system, so about 2 years of developing this thing. And this was before, we started all this before YouTube existed, before, well, about the same time as a product called WordPress, which I advocate WordPress. You ought to use WordPress if you're not sure where to go. WordPress is a good way to do it, to run your website. But anyway, so we were going this direction, but nobody had even really owned this space. And so at the time, our product had multi-language support. It supported videos, like old school videos, not on YouTube, where you could embed it, but actually having a video player embedded in your site and all this stuff. It was pretty cool stuff. And I just thought, we were on to something big. And then I realized that there was a whole other group of people, like with WordPress and some other platforms, but they had hundreds of developers working on those systems for free. And I realized, I can't have people on staff trying to build a product like this and expect to outpace teams of talent doing it because they were passionate about it, not because they were being paid to do it, And so I realized that the game was changing at that time. And as those platforms came on, and YouTube, and I don't know if you guys remember MySpace, right? I just thought that was kind of a joke. I was like, nobody's gonna go online for entertainment purposes to watch videos like this. I knew that they would watch videos like a demo, product presentation, right? I had that same, 80s, 90s mindset, just bringing it to the web in a sense, saying, the web is where it's at, but I hadn't fully embraced this idea of attraction. I was thinking about it as promotion. And anyway, so I was reluctant. Well, in 2007 or 2008, I had an aha moment, and I Googled myself, Justin McCullough. And then I Yahoo'd myself. And then I AOL'd myself. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm not anywhere, right? Here it is, I've been doing this stuff since the late 90s. I'm supposed to be one of these kind of guys, and I'm like 40 or 50 levels back, And so I did the unthinkable. I got a WordPress account. I built my website on WordPress, and I started embracing this idea of blogging and all that. And then I just realized, well, blogging and Twitter and Facebook and all that, and this is still years ago, this is where it's going to be. And sure enough, I mean, as the years have gone on, it's obviously this is where it's going to be. But what I did was I really cut my teeth in this new level of SEO, this new understanding of social media and what's called an online presence, because I Googled myself and I couldn't find me. And then I got real serious about it because there are a lot of Justin McCulloughs, there are a lot of Justins, Justin Bieber, for example.
You were after Justin Bieber?
I wasn't after Justin Bieber, but you know, I'd like to be found as just Justin. But you know, he's got me beat. But nevertheless, I got serious about it, and then once I realized what it took to do this, that was the first thing I did was I rolled that into all the services we were providing because I realized it's not whether or not you have a great looking website, it's whether or not they can find it. They can find it by the terms that they're looking for. So even though at that time we were doing custom development, I realized that people weren't looking for custom development, they were looking for Justin McCullough. And I wasn't anywhere. So that's how I got to be as committed and dedicated in that sense, because I wanted people to type in my name and find me when they didn't know what websites I owned and all that. So I'm happy to say now I pretty much own all the ranking results through all my networks, and you can do that too. And as a professional, as a business owner and executive, you want to do that because people are going to go to you. And I'll just say this, I am not the Justin McCullough from Florida that was arrested and convicted.
That's not.
I am not that Justin McCullough. But anyway, so SEO is a part of that. So what I just told is the benefits, the fruit of SEO. But here's how SEO works today. Because things have changed a lot. Used to, you were able to put on a website any keywords and kind of terms you wanted to put in there to get results. And then search engines realized, you know, well, if I give an adult website as a result to Ford Motors, it's probably not good. And so they started to refine their searches. So over time, they went from being an index of keywords to actually having all the advanced algorithms and stuff they have now, where they're actually trying to find the #1 result that you actually intended. So Bing and Yahoo and Google are highly motivated to give you a #1 experience so you don't try another platform. Okay, so that's what we need to understand first, kind of like this other stuff we talked about. The reason SEO matters is because Google cares so much about giving you the right result that you won't keep looking. Okay? So if Google cares that much to deliver the right result so you only search once, then the next question is, where are you in the search results for that keyword? In my case, Justin McCullough, I was like 5, 6, 8, 10 pages deep. That would be like 100 results. And so I wanted to change that. I wanted to be the very first result, right? And you know, then I wanted to have more than one result. So that's what you want to do is you want to start to know the keywords. Well, every business has different keywords. Obviously, Justin McCullough is one thing. But in my business, they're not going to look for, example, marketing consultant. I define myself that way. But the people who want a marketing consultant probably aren't going to be looking for me, right? They're going to be looking for somebody in New York or somebody big. If they know to look for a marketing consultant, right? That's what I mean.
Yeah.
If they know they are looking for a marketing consultant, they're not looking for me. So if I were to try to create an optimized page to have a high-level result for a marketing consultant, then what I would really be saying is, I want somebody who knows that to find me, and at that level I need to be a huge, expensive person, right? Because I'm going to be getting worldwide results for that, and I'm going to be putting a lot of energy to that. So then I have to have the things that support that identity, which I'm not going that direction. I wouldn't be able to support that. So the opposite side, though, is I don't want to necessarily just be the local web guy, right? And so I'm somewhere in this divide. But I'm not like you guys. I care about search results. I care about word of mouth. I care about referrals and testimonials. Thank you, Dad. But you guys, what you want to think about are things that have a city location, by city, state. Okay? You want to think about things that have a brand name. Hopefully it's your brand name, right? But it may be something you provide or your service or whatever. But here's what the general customer does. The general customer says, wedding cakes, Beaumont, Texas. That's what they search for. Okay? So if I'm Rayo's Bakery and I provide wedding cakes, is it smart for me to think like an executive and go, everybody knows who Rayo's is? Or is it smart for me to know how the customer thinks? And yeah, while they may look for Rayo's because it's top of mind for whatever reason, they're probably not. Instead, what they're going to do is they're going to search for wedding cakes, Beaumont, Texas. Because they have a local need. They want to make sure they're not getting national results, right? Because they're not going to buy any wedding cakes in Florida. So if you're one of these kind of people, Taekwondo, Bridge City, Texas, right? Or maybe Taekwondo, Southeast Texas. That'd be a broader result. But those are the kind of things that you want to tune in on the keyword. So once you understand what people are searching for from a keyword perspective, let's say this is one of them. Earlier on this slide, I'll just get back to it. A search engine optimized page means I have one page on my site. We'll use Rayo's as the example. Rayo's. This is their home page. Well, Rayo's doesn't stand for just wedding cakes, right?
Right.
They stand for a lot of things. They have locations, they have coffee, they have, right? So they stand for a lot. So Rayo's homepage won't be dedicated to wedding cakes, right? But if I'm advising Rayo's, I'm going to tell them you're going to have one page just for wedding cakes, one page just for birthday cakes, one page for Mardi Gras cakes, right? And they may resist that and they may say, hey, well, you know, that's just too much work. That's thinking about it as an expense, as opposed to thinking about it as an asset. So we create one page that's about wedding cakes that's optimized for the location. And we'll have a location here, and maybe we even have alternatives in the county and whatever else. But otherwise, this is all about wedding cakes in Beaumont. And so we have a headline that talks about wedding cakes in Beaumont. And we're not just kind of like banging away at this phrase, although the phrase is important. What we're really doing is we're telling the search engine and we're telling our customers that we really meant wedding cakes for this page, okay? So once that happens, we start to optimize that one single page to be about wedding cakes. And inevitably what happens is somebody says, okay, so this page is working now. It's showing up here. It's a number 3 result, and I know because people are clicking this link and I'm seeing the traffic on this page go up. In fact, I get more hits on my wedding cakes page than I do my home page, okay? That's an indication of that kind of performance. And so they go, well, you know, I'm at number 3, what would it be like if I was at number 2, right? Well, at number 2, we have to look at who that is and what did they do to their page? What are they promoting and advocating? How many links are linking to that page? Do they have social networks feeding into that page? Do they have a Facebook account, Twitter account, Flickr account, YouTube account, all this other stuff? So here's the deal. If this guy over here has all these social media accounts, including YouTube, and he's got a YouTube video, and his YouTube video has 3,000 hits, and you don't have any videos at all, then Google says, well, this guy's page must be more important because it's got multimedia on it, and his video alone has seen more plays. Does that make sense? So all these things start to add up, and whenever this guy here is always linking to his own page, going, you guys looking for a wedding cake? At the beginning of the month, at the middle of the month, and at the end of the month, he says, we sell wedding cakes. Know anybody looking for wedding cakes? And then somebody on Facebook shares that and says, oh yeah, I got my wedding cake here, and they have a testimonial, and they click over to it and like, oh yeah, I got that. See, that's how the social media now is impacting SEO. It wasn't like this way a year or 2 ago, but it is today. So now social media is driving SEO because this number 1 result may very well be a social media post. Something that happened 3 hours ago. It may be Sally saying, I used Rayo's for wedding cakes, gotta check it out. Because if you're logged into your Gmail account, Google knows who you are because they're thinking about what's in it for you. So you're logged in, they know you're in Beaumont, Texas, they know what your interests are because you've allowed them in your settings to see the things you search for, to see the things that you get in your email box. And so when you type in wedding cakes Beaumont, Texas, instead of being presented with what the true number 1 is, somewhere else, maybe this is the true number 1 in a non-logged in setting, now you've got 2 or 3 other options that are number 1 because I know who you are.
Now, with that, if you're not logged into your Gmail, or you're just doing a random Googling,
Then it's the true number 1.
then it's the true number
Either by
1.
geographic
Across
location.
the world, yeah. Does Google look at that, know where you're,
It could be.
where you're asking from?
It could
Even if you're not signed into your own Gmail?
Correct. It could be. I mean, obviously, it knows where you are because it knows what your location data is based on your IP address and,
Right.
you know, what your source is.
And they use that, right?
Correct.
For this. Because I don't care about my competition in New York.
Right. But if you do care about your competition in New York, log into your account, change your location in New York to New York.
Then your game changes.
And then you can see who is your competition in New York, because you get to mimic that local search concept.
Is that how Siri will find you too?
Siri, yes, yes. The truth of it is, when we talk about marketing expenses versus marketing assets, everything you do online now has a shelf life, and it's a pretty long one. And you can improve it over time, you can grow it over time, you can enhance it, you can monitor it, you can study it, you can improve it, right? You don't get those kind of results with running television ads. You either selling your sales line, you know, see your sales grow up or whatever, but this is something you can actually measure and improve over time. And so SEO is one of those things where right now it may be a foreign term, but this is where businesses are going, super small businesses, one-man companies are dominating because they decide they understand what the customer is, they understand what they represent and stand for, and they want to own it online because they know the customers are searching for it, and they want to be found. As opposed to caring so much about their storefront, or caring so much about even sometimes word of mouth. Sometimes people will completely ditch the whole word of mouth thing and just only target SEO. I don't advise it, but nevertheless, it is a tactic that can be used.
Just going, the difference between TV ads and social media. I can't tell you the last time I've seen a commercial. All we watch is internet TV. We've got us a box, we stream it into our TV. I can't even tell you the last time I've seen a commercial. And it's gonna.
And then you fast forward through all the.
So it's gonna become a thing of the past.
Yeah.
Fast.
Well, I mean, right now, we went from a few options to many options to now we have too many options.
Yeah.
Right? And so because we have too many options, we're going to create tribes, little pockets, little groups. Right? That is what's going to happen, whether or not we like it or not.
We've tried radio, we've had success with radio now and not again. And I hear on the radio advertisement for iHeartRadio, which, you know, that's cut your face off almost. You know, the radio stations, you can go listen to 106 or whatever, and they'll say iHeartRadio.
Yeah.
Well, then you're away from the local advertiser. You've got
Yeah, well, then you got satellite. The rest of us
Yeah.
are listening to satellite, and there's no commercials
I don't
for
know,
most of it.
we don't have radio, so we listen to internet radio and we listen to iHeartRadio, but they have advertising and it's really local radio, but I think what it is you can also make your own,
Make your own.
music,
Yeah,
which
Pandora and all
I
that
just
stuff.
turn it on as long as I have music, it's fine with me.
can-
I don't have
I can
time to
do
go
that.
click and say
Right.
music.
I want to ask a question about like the Google, your search engine, because I had someone tell me that Google is putting everyone that does reviews and stuff on Google Places, that puts you up at the top of
It may
their
right,
SEO.
It may right now.
Okay,
That'll
and then
change.
that's kind of how they're sorting
Yeah.
their SEO is based on the number of reviews you have as a business.
Google's always changing.
Yeah, I mean, that may be the current hack that works. But I always advise that you do what is normal for a human first. And then if there are certain exploits that you can do that are not questionable, then go ahead and fine tune that, right? But I wouldn't put everything in that one basket, because when it changes, you're going to be left out. You know, so you want to go ahead and again, SEO has now become, or not just SEO, but our web identity. The things we do for the web have become that same concept I was sharing earlier, where we're just kind of always doing stuff and reacting to it. The reason we're doing it is because, you know, Facebook buying,
Instagram.
thank you. Buying Instagram creates a ripple effect, and now Google is going to react to that, right? And Twitter is going to react to that. So what we're talking about here is a marketplace that is, for one, it's already evolving, and then it's being driven to evolve, right? And so when you have these major players, you know, you got somebody like Facebook who's $50 billion, right? We're not talking about a couple of kids anymore, right? We're not talking about even the same concept of Microsoft, which we revered and respected for so long as being a huge tech player. Now, you know, Microsoft is like something we think about after Apple, after Google, after Facebook, right? But yet, for some reason, we still think about Microsoft differently than we think about Facebook, right? And that's because we're immature in our understanding, because we're still trying to figure it out. But the marketplace, the commercial marketplace, sees where it's at, right? The people who know where it's going are getting it. So that's a huge indication of where we need to be. Yes.
I keep getting these emails on how to improve your, your presence by doing premier listings on Next and Yelp and all that stuff. Is that worth the money to do that, or?
Yeah,
You
so.
can do them for free, yeah.
No, the premier listings.
No, even that.
You can set up all those accounts yourself, and you can run any buying program through those networks you want. What they're doing is they're providing a service to manage all that for you, to create your ads for you, to place it in that network for you, and that's where their value is coming out of it. But most of this stuff, let me rephrase that. There is no product network, all right? So if somebody sells you a service like that, they have access to the same tools, same services, same network as you do. They may have a different buy level because they've negotiated something as a broker, but they're not giving you, at least in any of the cases I can immediately think of, they're not giving you access to anything you don't already have access to. The difference may be they know about tools you don't know about, they know about settings you don't know about, they know about the mechanics of the ad placement that you don't know about, they know about time slots, they know about buy rates, they know about click-through rates. Those are kind of more refined points they may know about that could be valuable to you. You may want to buy that service. But for example, whenever I do those kind of things for folks, I try not to blend all that together, right? There's a buying budget. This is how much your ads cost, and then here's what it takes for me to do the services for you.
Right.
What gets complicated though is when all that's packaged together, you're not sure what's what. Right? And that's probably when you respond to now is you're like, okay, I see a fee here, but I'm not clear on what I'm getting.
Yeah,
You know?
it's just like a lump sum price.
Right.
Do everything.
Yeah, I will tell you that there are a couple of groups up there that are very aggressive with their sales teams, telemarketers, email, direct mail. They're very aggressive as a marketing front, and in those cases, Google their name, the word scam, or their name and the word
Those are the ones that are
Complaints.
calling,
Those are the ones
that are
scam,
calling all our
complaints.
local businesses
That's right.
that are confusing them.
Yep.
Emailing.
Totally
Yeah,
confusing
I
them.
get, and they're all kind of different names, but they say exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And can I just say something? When it deals with Google and the internet and stuff, if you don't have a local person, and we're both in the same business,
Okay.
local person helping you out and talking to you and being one-on-one with you and spending some time with you, then you're probably not getting what is necessary for you to be able to use to spend that money. You really need somebody who's going to sit there and explain and talk to you and whatever, instead of somebody from California or
from a consumer perspective,
India or something.
I've been online for as long as I can remember, and started off in software development, and I can tell you, as long as I have used search engines since the 90s, I ignore anyone with a paid ad at the top and go straight to
the organic listings.
the organic listings. It's just the way I've always done it, because I know from both the sales and marketing perspective, someone paid to get there.
Yeah.
So I'm always much more interested in the organic listing, those that have gotten there through the viral spread.
Sure.
Just from a consumer perspective on what I've done. I mean, that's just where
You
my
might
eyes
relook that,
go.
because it used to be, all those used to be your national accounts, but now your local people are getting on those spots.
Was it
Um,
click to pays? Is that what that is?
Yeah, because of that reason. And they can get there quicker than they could if they
Yeah,
did the whole long.
and I will say, she's sharing a perspective that a lot of us do have about
Yeah,
ignoring
I do
sponsored ads.
too.
But there are still, there is a lot of value to sponsored ads, whether it's on Facebook ads or it's Google AdWords or wherever. And I would encourage you that if you're looking at growing your pipeline, growing your email list, whatever it is, especially if it's something on the acquisition side, not at the transaction side, but on the customer development side, you know, if you decide, hey, I've got $500 to spend on a budget, and it's all about getting people to sign up to my newsletter, and you create an attractive page with an appeal and all this other kind of stuff, and you have good, well-targeted keywords that you're purchasing, not like these wide generic terms, but good keywords, you can find that you can put more people in your long-term funnel super cheap than if you did a direct mail program or a television ad or whatever else. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get people in our, even if they're not at the buying stage, they're in the just looking stage or whatever, we can have some quality content we give them behind a paywall or a forum or something like that. Those are still good things. So even though categorically, or rather generically, we do say that sponsored ads are often ignored, they're not ignored by everybody, right? And depending on what your intentions are, they could be a good business development tool. Anybody else or anything else? I have the ability to visit with any of you guys if you want to come out and swap cards or talk later, we can do that. If you have any success stories or anything that you want to share that you've had as a result, feel free to leave me a card or whatever, or send me an email. Tell me what you've had success with. I always love hearing about it. As you've heard me today, I'm quite liberal with giving my examples, and so I don't mind giving examples, and you know, be happy to hear what you're doing with success. And obviously, if you have any challenges, I can help you with that too. Thank you so much for coming.